Tom from Cyber-Tek here. I noticed it's been a while since I've done a transmission and figured it was about time I do a new one. Because, most of what passes for important these days is just noise with better marketing. Last night, much like this afternoon, while the timelines churned and the outrage machine ramped up, I chilled out in my lab here and tuned into something much quieter. The steady hum of real things happening in real places. IRL. Meat space, baby. You see, brush fires don't care about narratives. The wind doesn't check the headlines. Risk doesn't wait for consensus. And there's a clarity in this part of the ether in those frequencies. There's no spin or spectacle. It's just info you can actually use. As Agent T.W. Lee would say, it sends no clone. Here we have a police scanner. 10 minutes to program, $10 at a hamfest. Suddenly you're not reacting, you're observing. Today I'm going to show you how. How to get it up and running, just you and the receiver. Remember, not everything worth knowing is trending. Some of it is just broadcasting. So here we have a Whistler WS1040. Much like any other scanner of its vintage, anything made within the past 10 or 15 years or so, it has a search function. And that search function includes a service search. A service search will go through all the frequencies allocated for a particular land mobile radio service. In this case, we're going to hit the search button, shown here as SRCH, and go through the various service searches that are available. Public safety, aircraft, ham radio, CB, marine, VHF marine band, FRS, GRS, and MURS, the Part 95 license-free stuff, and a limit search. Since I just turned this on after having wiped it, it has a full search limit of 25 to 1300 megahertz. In this case, we're going to run a public safety search and see what we can find. Now in this case, I pulled a signal and I'm going to hit store and put it in memory. Let's see what else we get. Okay, so that's a digital signal, but it's kind of weak. We couldn't hear any audio. Right now I just have the VHF low band going through, and that's VHF high band. And there's another one. We'll store that. So when I hear a signal, I hit that F3 button, which stores it into a memory. And once it's stored into a memory, I can just hit the up arrow and keep cycling through. So we've pulled a couple. And you can literally sit here all night finding out what local public safety frequencies you can receive from your particular listening post location. So you spend a couple hours doing a band search of the public safety band, and you've got a few frequencies stored in your scanner. Where do you go from there? How do you find out what you're listening to? I'm going to say the best way to do it is to use a combination of Google Maps and the FCC database. You can plug a frequency into the FCC database via a search, and it will tell you everything within a certain mile radius of your location that's licensed on that particular frequency. As if you hear a dispatch call for a particular address and you look that address up in Google Maps, you'll at least know what agency or jurisdiction is responsible for that area, and you'll know that, for example, if a dispatch call is down the road from you, know that's your local dispatch channel because you've heard it. The other sites, which are good for unlicensed stuff, because occasionally jurisdictions like to run on unlicensed channels, and the FCC won't have records for that. There are two major sites. They're Intercept Radio and Radio Reference. I'm going to talk about Intercept Radio first. The guy who created that site's been a friend of mine since high school. He's an old school hacker from the Pacific Northwest. That's probably the better of the two sites in my opinion, but I am biased. The second site, Radio Reference, does have a larger database, but it's been known to have inaccuracies. And while Lindsey Blanton is cool, he and I used to write for Scanning USA. He did the trunk radio column, and I did the private sector SIGINT column, and occasionally would write under the pseudonym of Deep Throat. Yes, the same Deep Throat from Deep Throat and the Nixon Plumbers. Um, while Lindsay's cool, some of the people that are moderating on that and some of the users on Radio Reference have a really bad case of assholia, and I'm just going to leave it at that. But those are the three sites. Your mileage may vary. Use all three of them to find out your information. But of the three, the most accurate data, in that it is just raw data of frequency licenses, would be the FCC's website. So I wanted to show you the $10 Hamfest special in BC760 XLT. It's early 90s vintage. It's only 100 channels, but it does have 800 megahertz. It's analog only. But most fire dispatch channels in suburban and rural areas are still running analog dispatch. If it's running P25, you can always add a discriminator tap to this radio and run DSD Plus to demodulate P25 audio. You can also demodulate the DMR and NXDN as well with that software. One of the interesting things about this one, which is why I grabbed it at the Hamfest, is that this 760 XLT has the optional CTCSS decode and RF amp board installed in it. You don't see that very often. This one had it. In this case, if you saw one of these with that optional board, yeah, you might even want to pay as much as $20 for one, but I wouldn't pay more than $20 for one of these. For that price, it's a really, really great unit for listening into analog signals. Like I said, you can always go digital with a discriminator tap and some computer software. Now this one has service searches, but the service searches work a little differently. You notice a bunch of symbols here, and you have a badge, which is a law enforcement service search, a flame icon, which is for fire and EMS. Aircraft is obviously for aeronautical stuff. There's a weather band search and a VHF marine band search. Before they had a common pool of public safety frequencies, they actually had different frequencies specifically allocated for police, EMS, fire, public works, and so on. And this radio is from that era. But hey, it's $10 and they work really, really well. So we're coming to the end of this transmission, and before I close things up, I just wanted to show you all one more thing. I was working on a piece of equipment earlier, and the wall-wart, which probably dated from the 1970s or early 80s, fell apart on me because the plastic was brittle due to its age. And here's the case of the wall-wart, and as you can see, it's just a generic 300 milliamp AC adapter, 117 volts AC in, 12 volts out. There's the case that broke apart, and here is what the inside looks like. That's basically what's in a wall-wart. You've got an AC line going directly into the primary of this nominal 12 volt transformer, and then they soldered the secondary leads directly to this piece of PC board, and you have three components. Two diodes to rectify the AC into DC, and then an electrolytic capacitor to smooth it out. That's what's inside a wall-wart. Usually, when these things break, they don't last very long, and I have to power something up. I just switch over to a variable voltage bench supply, and right here is the variable voltage bench supply that I use for running most of the equipment here in the lab. So this is the end of this transmission. I hope you enjoyed it. If you would like to learn more about communications monitoring and private sector signals intelligence, or SIGINT, I do have a book out, Down Grid Communications. You can get it off my gum road at litchfieldhillspress.gumroad.com. If you like this transmission, please subscribe to me either on my Patreon or on Substack. And paid subscribers do get all free content off of my gum road. Again, hope you enjoyed it. Have a good night. This is Tom from Cyber-Tek signing off.